Okay, things to look for when you are reading your texts. This is all very obvious. Okay, so what happens? What are the major events? Do they happen in chronological order? What's the conflict? Turn my page over. Is there foreshadowing? Whose point of view? Okay, so all those things about plot. So you need to have a very firm understanding of what happens, when and why. You need to know about characters, obviously, because the characters are the ones who move the plot forward. Often about main characters. This is all assuming that you're not doing poetry. Poetry, there often isn't a plot or a main characters. We'll talk about poetry specifically later. Why do you think there that I've highlighted who are the minor characters? Why are minor characters so important? Perfect. That's a really great way of putting it. Underrepresented in essays. How many times? Did anyone do Medea? Medea, yes. Okay, so that's a very typical one, where it's like just Jason and just Medea. Okay, or Macbeth, if it's just Macbeth, Lady Macbeth and the witches. What about everybody else? Do you know how many? It's the same as in William Shakespeare's play Macbeth, in Euripides' play Medea. The same way everyone starts, it's the same predictable paragraphs. Here we go again. Suddenly, an underrepresented character. Oh, the nurse. That was interesting. Didn't think of her like that. Or, yeah, Malcolm. I didn't really consider him to be as important as the witches, but maybe he is. Good idea. Okay, so suddenly what does it show? It shows a depth of textual knowledge that other people aren't showing. Using minor characters is a really, really, really simple way to make you stand out from everyone else who's just doing the stock standard response. Okay, even if you are just doing your main characters, that's fine, but try and link a minor character to a main character if you can. Okay, really, really easy way to show a depth of knowledge and set you apart from others. Does the setting, is that important? Of course it is. Where does it take place? Does it change? Setting is usually also metaphorical. Okay, so I don't know if Stasiland, is anyone doing that? I'm sure you wouldn't be doing it this year, maybe next year. Did anyone school do Stasiland as a comparison? Yes, setting is extremely important there. Okay, because the setting, you know, she goes into Eastern Germany and it's grey and it's cold and there's no colours. It's clinical. It smells of bleach. And it's actually the title, it's winter, Berlin winter. Okay, by the end of the text, suddenly there's green. There's fruit on the trees. There's kids playing in the park and it's Berlin spring. Okay, so the titles of the chapters, the setting, reflects her own personal journey and the way that she's come to understand the people of East Germany. Okay, so setting is important, especially if you are able to use it metaphorically, which is the next one, metaphors, mood and symbolism. What themes, of course, this is all well and good, but what I've said to you, this is all important content knowledge. Okay, you all know that you need to write about this in your essays. It's how you use it that's important. Okay, there's no point, you can know everything, you can know a text back and forward, but if you don't know how to apply that knowledge to a specific essay question, then you might as well not know it at all. Okay, number one, the most important thing you can do is respond to your essay question. I used to think when I was at school, I was smarter than that I could just memorize an essay and kind of tweak it to fit whatever essay question I had. No one would know. Okay, now I know better. Okay, being able to respond off the cuff to a range of different specific essay topics, that's where the marks are. Okay, so know your content, but knowing how to apply it to a specific essay question, that's the skill. Be bold in your content. Don't feel like, this is again going back to the study design, don't feel like you have to use what your teacher's giving you in class. Okay, great. It's easy to do that. But don't just rely on that. Find something interesting. Apply it to a thought, that you might have had about something else in the world philosophically. Is this what I believe in? Is this what that person's trying to say about religion or life or independence or truth? Try and find something in it that maybe isn't being as openly discussed in your classroom and go with that. Who's there to say it's wrong? And this is where some people struggle with English because it is so open. Okay, there isn't a formula. It's not like maths where there is a definite right answer. And that's also really great because it means you can never be wrong. Okay, so you can develop your own point of view. As long as you can use the text to prove that that's true, then no one can ever tell you that's wrong. Okay, so be confident and be a little bit different in the content that you're using. Okay, now I need to try and make that big again. There we go. Okay, so setting plot, characters and style, great. I know all about this now. I've read my book, I kind of get it. All of those things are being used to explore themes or ideas or to develop them. Okay, so basically, what's the message of your text? What's the point? What was the purpose? The author didn't write it because they were bored one day and just felt like writing, a cool story. Okay, even fairy tales, kids' books, they all have messages in them. Okay, so the most simple tales, the most simple stories still have messages and purpose. Find out what it is, and then you use your plot. This is how the plot represents that theory. This is how the characters unpacked that theme. This is how the style or the setting explored that message. It's always about that message, that underlying foundation, that core point, and everything else is just how that's being explained or explored. That's why how questions should be your best friend. If you ever get an essay question that says, how does Shakespeare use, Macbeth, or how does the play demonstrate, evil, or how does Euripides use his characters to explain gender roles or something. If you get an essay question that starts with the word how, clap your hands with joy and glee. Okay, this is one of the easiest ways to separate yourself out from the pack, because how, he used language, he used characterization, he used symbolism. Guess what that is? 3 paragraphs. How, he used the structure of the text. He used stage directions. Characterization. It gets you away from those very typical character paragraphs that everybody hates. You hate writing them probably. Teachers don't really like reading them. Okay, so how is perfect because each of these things can be a paragraph explaining how it was used to explain that message or purpose. Don't be afraid of them. We'll talk about how questions a little bit later. So, just have a look at that part that's, I've drawn a box around. You do need to know the context that the play or the film or the novel was written in. You need to know a little bit about the author, the views and values of the author, what was going on maybe politically, what was going on socially, culturally, how did it affect the development of the text? Yes, you do. What's the but here? This is not literature, okay? If you go away and you research Anna Funder, or Wilfred Owen, or Euripides, or Macbeth, or William Golding, whatever your text is, you go away and research the author. Oh, he was, in World War II and never really recovered, and then he wrote Lord of the Flies, and there's all this stuff about war and da-da-da. That's great, but that is in no way relevant to your essay question that was about hope. Okay? If it was literature, it'd be a little bit different, okay? That's when you're unpacking views and values and how the world that the author lived in at the time shaped the writing of the text. That's not English. Okay, so yes, know it, but don't put too much emphasis on it unless, of course, it's relevant to your essay question, which would need to be something about historical context, which I doubt you would get. Okay, so know it, but don't emphasize it. Your English essays need to be specific to text, not about things outside of. Okay, themes and issues. Remember, I've already said this, draw a circle around it. You need to know the purpose of the text. Whose school does Shakespeare? Yes, a couple. All right, so tragedies, there's The Fatal Flaw. I'm sure you've all discussed that. So his plays might be to explore the dangers of greed or the destructive nature of ambition or jealousy. Okay, anyone do Lord of the Flies? It's another really common one as well. Yep. Okay, so humanity, the propensity for human evil. Is it in our nature to be evil? Okay, so you need to find in the text that you're reading, what is the purpose of this text? Now, what you might find comparatively is that the texts are the same core message. So when I was telling you about Catcher in the Rye and Into the Wild, the messages kind of were the same about what happens when people are isolated, those feelings of isolation and feeling like you don't fit into society and you don't want to be like your parents, but yet you don't really know how to be the person you want to be. The purpose of the text was the same. The outcome of the text were completely different, and the way that they explored that central idea was completely different. Okay, so here we have the similarities and differences. The similarities is that the purpose or the message was the same, how they explored it was different. So if you just talk about how they're the same, you're missing all of those extra marks you could get by showing the fact that you know that they are slightly different in how they did that. Who, when they read a text, sometimes you read an English text, sometimes you read it and you get something from, you're like, I really connected with that. And then you get into your class and you hear a discussion and they're talking about something and you think, that's not what I thought. I just won't say anything. Don't make eye contact with anybody in case they ask me a question. Okay, and sometimes then your confidence gets a little bit bruised because you think this isn't what I thought it was about and I didn't think that that metaphor was using that in a poem or something. There is no such thing. Own it. Okay, something different is so refreshing as a teacher, definitely to read. And if it's exciting for you to write something different, do that. Okay, this is not an exercise in memorization where you just have to sit and memorize. This is what my teacher told me. This is what she wants. Therefore, this is what I'll do. Boring for you, boring for me. Okay, two people, you can be sitting next to your friend in your class reading the same book. You can think two completely different things. Amazing. Don't feel discouraged by that. Okay, Macbeth, good guy, bad guy. Sometimes, some years I teach that I think he's not that bad. He was a victim. And other years I read it with a different class who have different opinions and I think actually he's pretty awful. Okay, so sometimes it changes and it should change depending on conversations you have and the way that you then read the second text. So nice to have something different to read. These are just a list of common themes that might pop up in the two texts. The ones I've highlighted are generally pretty common. Betrayal, change, individuality, identity, role of women, discovering self, racial prejudice. A lot of these will overlap, and that's totally fine. So what you might find is that the purpose of the text is to unpack one of these main themes or to explore one of those main things, and then they look at different ways it might exist.